What is happening? Is it really over? Are we seeing the end of altcoins happening right before our eyes? Well, we're going to be talking about that today. Some of my opinions on why I think that could possibly be true, but also why I think it's probably more likely than not that that is the case. So we're going to be talking about all of it. I'll kind of give you the arguments in both directions as to why it could be over and then why it also could not be over. And then I want to talk to you about some of the favorite altcoins that we like to talk about on the channel here and talk about each of them individually. So there's going to be a ton going on in the video today. Of course, I do have the timeline tags in the description below or on the video. You'll see them if you're wanting to look at a particular coin overall, but I do think it makes a lot of sense to figure out what's going on in the overall market and what's going on with just kind of the overall state of altcoins rather than just looking at a specific altcoin in particular, because sometimes it doesn't quite give the full story. So let's go ahead. We'll take a look at all of the things. I apologize for being away for a couple of days. I was having a heck of a travel day back home. It was a very long process, but we're here now. So I want to do just a quick overall update of what we're seeing. As you can see on the day, relatively rough, about I don't even know what we call the average here, maybe like 8 to 9% average, but we can see several different coins here over 10% down within the single day. So definitely things looking a little bit difficult. We can see ICP down about 7%, Kaspa about 7%, Virtuals 12, Aero 11, ETH 6, Solana 9. I mean, so some really difficult moves here. 3% on Bitcoin, only 4% on Hype, which is actually doing pretty nicely. But then we see something like Aster down 22%. So definitely a relatively difficult day here in the market. If we look at the week, though, you will see ICP is actually green, a very rare thing that we have seen recently. It's usually ICP has been the one kind of lagging the market. We might be seeing a page getting turned here for ICP, though, which would be fantastic. So we'll see. Tau also doing very well. So this is, you can kind of see the AI crypto coins potentially starting to see some movement here. So obviously it feels pretty good, to start to see ICP turn around, though, although it is very early. So we will have to see for sure kind of what the future holds. But you can see on the week about 20%, I would say, maybe being the market average on what we're seeing down for crypto. Hopefully we start to see a lot of this coming back. Why is this happening? I think that's kind of the first question. If we look at the total 3 market cap here, you will see we continue to make lower lows. We have held up at this pretty key level of the $925 billion range. If we hold this level, I think we're okay. If we do break below this level, obviously we're still kind of just messing with gains at this point, at least relative from what we've seen kind of from the lows in April. So, we could continue to go further down, but this is kind of where, if we were to look at kind of like what we consider a bull flag, right? Anything above here, we would be holding kind of above this like 50% retracement mark at this level. So that is really kind of the thing that I'm keeping a very close eye on. If we do break below this, we're probably going to be looking at the $900 billion range next. And then from there, we could even see a much further fall down to about the $850 billion range. So of course, if we are wanting to look at taking out new all-time highs, which we did do twice here, but we couldn't really sustain above this kind of what we'd call all-time high level. It's kind of between this 1.13 to, we'll call it now 1.2 trillion range, is just, you could see here, we had highs back in late 2024, early 2025. And then of course here we had them back in September as well as October. But then from there, it's basically been down only. And this is also the highs that we saw back in 2021. So we have not seen a meaningful, really new all-time high from altcoins quite yet. So that's, of course, very important to understand. And we want to make sure that we're keeping a very close eye on. Now, I personally think that these are going to be some pretty good buying opportunities. So that's what I've been doing. I've been DCAing in on basically all of the large crypto holdings that I have. I've continued to build up my position in Hyperliquid. I've continued to build up my position in ICP. I've continued to buy Bitcoin as it continues to drop. All of these types of things. Tau is another one that I've started to build a position in, which has actually done really well over the past couple of weeks. Definitely didn't plan that, but that stuff can happen sometimes when you're in crypto. So that's what I've been looking at personally. We'll have to see kind of overall how it goes, but I usually look to use these opportunities as buying opportunities. Now, of course, this could be a really bad idea, and we could continue to go much lower. Yes, possible, right? But what I'm looking for is I'm looking for best-in-class projects. And so even if they do continue to go lower, I am playing the odds that over time, things will continue to get stronger and then they will go higher from here. Even if they do go lower from here, as long as you're not trading on too high of leverage or any leverage at all, it should be okay. So overall, I do have those affiliate links in the description below. If you want to go start to DCA, obviously, you know, if you use leverage at all or how much leverage you use is completely up to your discretion. That is something that you need to be making your own decision on. But that is what I've been using. I've been going in DCing some on high leverage, just as kind of like very, very limited kind of swing plays. But most of the big buys I've been making have been in spot and then a smaller level in very, very low leverage longs, primarily limited, I would say, to almost solely Bitcoin. So if you are interested, of course, I do have the links in the description below. You can check those out, a whole bunch of different deposit bonuses and things like that. But you can feel free to check those out. Let's go on ahead and let's check out all of the different altcoins because I want to be very careful that this video does not get too long. So we'll start out with ICP. We'll then go through kind of all of the other big ones that we have, just so you can kind of hear about kind of the state of what's going on here. Now, of course, as we did mention briefly with ICP, we did see a really, really strong move up over the past couple of days here. We have seen a little bit of that retrace actually holding as a level of support on the $3.62 range. Now, the key thing that I've mentioned several times here is that we need to break and hold back inside this kind of $4.18 range to like $6.36 range for a sustained period of time. Now, we did get back up into this high liquidity zone as we have identified, but then we got rejected and broke right back down. Overall, that is what we need to be very careful of and why we have all of these charts and zones and stuff drawn, because you can see that they do respect them fairly well. Now, having this level of momentum is very, very good to see. You'll see we're clearly outside of the Bollinger Bands right now on ICP, so I don't expect this to continue to be a straight up only type of move. Even if we continue to consolidate in this area for a little while, let the Bollinger Bands catch up, let the RSI reset a little bit, and then continue a move back to the upside, that's realistically what we need to see anyway, right? Pumps like this aren't necessarily sustainable. We want to see more sustained and like slow grinding moves up over time. We have a couple following Hyperliquid and Aero. Those are perfect examples of that, so we'll take a look there. But right now, let's actually go on ahead next to ZBCN, just so we can see how ZBCN is looking. ZBCN is, of course, struggling slightly like everything else. You can see here, did break out, or did break down below this really key level of support, which is definitely unfortunate. It does appear that we may be heading back down to this kind of like 002 range potentially. That is kind of the next major level. You can see we do have a couple of ranges here that we could hold. We are holding right now at the 0031 range, or I guess we've wicked back up to it. This is kind of a key level of support. We have another key level of support about like the 0028, and then another one down here in like the 0024, 0023-ish range. But realistically, the next big level is down here at the 002. So with this break happening, it's definitely going to potentially signal some further pain and some further suffering for us ZBCN holders. So this is something where, again, as we start to move down, I'll continue to DC. I'm DCing into projects that I like and I believe in long term, and that is, maybe it's a good idea, maybe it's a bad idea, maybe things turn around, maybe they don't, right? But you just never know. That's kind of the whole point of investing. I'm looking for things that seem to have the most legitimate use cases, the most reasonable ways to being profitable and kind of making having some sort of reason to own the token. And so that's really kind of what I've limited my investments to specifically. If we get into a bit of a more frothy alt season or something like that, then I can start to go a little bit further out on the risk curve. But right now I'm really kind of laser focused in on S tier projects that really make a whole bunch of sense in my opinion. So that is what we're seeing out of ZBCN. Again, a little bit of some pain here in the short term, but I do still think longer term that this one does have a really strong potential. Now, again, keep in mind with these smaller coins, they do have higher risk. So if you are a little bit more risk averse, I would probably stay outside of these smaller coins, because honestly, I would just limit it to Bitcoin only. Again, that's not financial advice. That's my own personal opinion, because Bitcoin is kind of the least risky crypto asset, while still being incredibly risky because it is crypto. Now, Moving on, we can see Kaspa here. Kaspa is not looking good at all. Hopefully we continue to see a turnaround here for Kaspa, or we even start to see a turnaround for Kaspa. Right now, we're not seeing anything like that. RSIs are massively oversold. You'll see we're pushing consistently towards the bottom of the Bollinger Bands. We're falling out of every sort of structure imaginable. Things don't look particularly great for Kaspa. So ideally, we see, you know, like I said, we find a bottom here. We start to see this turn around. But particularly right now, there's a lot of what we're seeing with the U.S. government shutdown is a lack of liquidity in the system. Liquidity is drying up. This is affecting everybody throughout all ranges, but particularly crypto, because it is so risk on. As people get slightly concerned about how long this government shutdown could last, people are pulling their money out, and then we're starting to see things like this happen. We're seeing lower highs, we're seeing lower lows. It's just, we are in a general downtrend here in the crypto market because of a lot of these types of things. So you have to be very careful. Do not be deluded into thinking that, you know, all is going to come back tomorrow. I think if/when we see the government shutdown end, we will see a nice little bounce. But until then, and who knows how long that will be, we're going to see things continue to bleed out. So just be prepared for that. That's why I'm making small DCAs right now, but I'm not backing up the truck because we just don't really know how long this could go on. It could go on for another year. I mean, I think it's unlikely, but it's definitely possible. Anything can happen. So let's go ahead. We'll take a look at the next one here, which is Aerodrome. Again, wanting to make sure we're not going too long on the video here, but you'll see Aerodrome looking better relatively than some of the others that we've seen. Obviously, we have this continued kind of trend line to the downside. We did try to break it for a minute and then, of course, have come right back down, which is a little bit unfortunate here, but we are holding at some pretty key levels of support. This 72-cent range was kind of where we came back down recently. We're coming back down right now. It seems like we might be getting held up by this 85-cent range. But as I was kind of alluding to earlier, you can see the consistent kind of trend here. This is what we need to see from something like ICP. Consistent higher highs, consistent higher lows. Obviously, we've kind of broken some of this initial structure we were following, but you can still see lows holding up, you know, with kind of previous key levels of support. We're trying to break through highs here. We're still seeing lower lows of this range, but it is generally looking, hopefully you can see, a little bit more healthy than some of the others. And so this is what I would say is something that we need to see from ICP looking similar to this. Now, Aerodrome, I still think is fantastic. This is another one that I think has a lot of fundamental value going on here, particularly with the adoption of base. So I think that we will see a continued move back to the upside, but you just don't know. It could go to zero. Don't invest money you can't afford to lose is my personal opinion, and that is generally how I stick to my strategy here. Now, next off, let's take a look at KTA. We can see a couple of different things here. Now, KTA, of course, you can see had a little bit of momentum. It has started to kind of retrace a little bit. If we can hold this level at about 37, 38 cents, it does look like we are breaking below it right now, then maybe we will see a further sell-off. Maybe we'll even push new lows. If that were to happen, I do think that that would be pretty difficult. It would be a troubling sign for the KTA token and the KTA community, but we'll just have to see. Right now, things are looking okay. We did make a higher high from kind of the recent swing, so that did look pretty good. If we can hold this higher low, then that does mean we could be back in a macro uptrend for KTA in an otherwise fairly difficult environment. So that, I think, would be a fairly good thing to see. We'll have to see exactly what happens here. So again, keep your eyes peeled and stay tuned here. We just really never know for sure what's coming next. So after that, let's take a look at Hyperliquid. Hyperliquid is another one that I've been talking about in terms of kind of how strong of a chart it is. You can see it basically has gone up and to the right. Recently, we have seen, you know, some difficulties and some struggles. We did top here at about close to $60, and then we have seen lows even after like the liquidation event coming down to about, you know, $31 to like $34. On the liquidation event, Hyperliquid held quite well, which means it does have a good bit of liquidity in it, and it does have a lot of people paying very close attention. So this is not one that you could snipe on super discount, unfortunately, but you will see it is holding still relatively okay. If we go ahead and we do just some quick charting here, you'll see, you know, probably a key level of support here, kind of broken below it a couple of different times, but nothing too crazy. You can see kind of the major swing lows happening here, which we didn't actually quite touch on these moves back to the downside. And then you'll see, probably here is going to be a key level of resistance that we've hit and been rejected on multiple different times. And we also got rejected on it recently. So that is something I'm keeping a very close eye on. These are kind of probably the big levels of support and resistance here. I still feel very, very good about Hyperliquid. That's why I started opening positions when we saw prices come back down here. If we see prices drop below, let's say they come back down to $20, I will not be afraid. I will be buying more. I think Hyperliquid long-term actually is a really strong product. So that is my personal opinion. Of course, it's not financial advice. As I've mentioned several times in this video, this is just what I personally am doing in the market and what my thoughts are on the altcoins. Even though they are currently looking a little bit scary, I do think that long-term things are looking good. So I would just advise extreme caution with doing anything like leverage or, trading like that, just because in the short term, there might be further downside to go. There might be more pain in it for us next. But I do think long-term things are still looking okay, just because we have so many things happening. We just have these kind of short-term liquidity crunches that are really negatively impacting what we're seeing right now. So overall, that's kind of my perspective. Again, I will be back to the daily videos now that I'm back in town. So I really appreciate you guys bearing with me on that slight pause. I think that's the longest I've gone without posting since I started the channel. So apologies there. Really appreciate all of the support and everything in a otherwise difficult crypto market. It does make a huge difference. So thank you so much. And of course, if you found the information in the video useful, you know what to do, all that type of good stuff. And then I'd love to hear your comments. Where do you think we're going next? Are we higher? Are we lower? Have we topped? I would love to hear all your thoughts. Just let me know in the comment section below. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.